Misanthrope's lecture and analysis.
Kit in the Mystic Forest, Act 1, History and Quest, Part 1. Every story needs an open. Once upon a time, on the outskirts of a town, in a house atop a hill, there lived a little girl. This little girl's name was Kit. Kit the kid, of which she was never called, lived there happily with her mother and father, at least for a while. You see, in some time, Kit's mother became sick. Her skin grayed and hair whited, and soon she stopped talking, and soon she stopped moving. Part 2. Something he couldn't hope to forget. Kit's father, a big and sturdy man, with a face so stern, never showed fear or panic as his poor wife's condition worsened and worsened. However, with each new symptom she displayed, his brows would knit and his scowl would strengthen. His face never showed fear or panic, but it did show concern, and gravely it was, as so it seemed to him that this affliction was familiar, a remnant from his past, a past he couldn't hope to forget. Part 3. The Book of Words. He knew what he had to do. In the town, there was a book. The Book of Words it was called, hidden within the old mayor's home. Within its numerous pages lied the secrets to all things, old and new, and what could be. That book, he knew, knows of a way to cure his wife, and so he grabbed his satchel and torch, kissed his daughter and wife upon the head, and jumped on his steed. Townward he went, back to his old home, back to the place which banished him and his own. Part 4. The Legend 1, a lifetime ago. As he raced down the hill, raced towards the town, he recalled his life past. You see, in his youth, he was known as Bailey of the Woods, for he had walked from there and into the town. Though, because it flowed more, he was more commonly called Bailey Woods. And because Bailey was so strong and caring, and had a good heart, the town and its denizens had welcomed him to stay. But, inadvertently, Bailey would break one of the town's ironclad laws and enter the forest, which caused a horrible plague to befall the town. And though this poor soul would single-handedly lift that curse, he was forever banished from his then new home. Bailey had arrived at his destination, and banished or not, it mattered very little. His wife was in peril, so he stepped down from his horse and entered the town. Part 5. The fault lies not with us. In this town, silent as a wake, Bailey moved without unease, for his path was set, and his mind was focused. He had come for the book of words, which he did not hope but knew confidently had the cure to his wife's ailment, an ailment that seemed similar to the plague he had unleashed accidentally upon this humble town so long ago. Bailey soon had his hands on the book, and just as quickly as he came, he was off like the wind, back to his wife and little daughter named Kit. No one was the wiser that he had come, no one except for the old mayor. who had watched him enter and leave and speed back up the hill. He watched intently while letting cryptic vocabulary fall from his lips. The fault lies not with us, Bailey of the Woods. He said it again while clutching a book all his own. The fault lies not with us. Part 6. Father, hurry. Back at the home of Woods, Bailey's daughter, Kit Woods, was tending to her poor sick mother while not so patiently awaiting her father's return. She zigzagged between panic and duty. In one moment, she would be pacing in circles, while in the next, she would be tending her mother's condition, which, by the way, was worsening. The mother's skin was now hardening and her fingernails blackening. The very sight scared Kit to her core. Her little mind, frantic, meandered between panic and duty. And all she could think to say was, "Father, hurry." Part 7. The Legend 2. Dream with Lorelai Eisweirth IV. While the girl named Kit ran in circles, and the man named Bailey climbed the hill, the mother lay comatose in her home, unable to move, not even a wiggle. All she could do was dream in the ever-increasing hominess of the void of her mind. She dreamed of her mother, Lorelai III, and of her grandmother, also named Lorelai, and then of her great-grandmama, the great Lorelai I. She came from a noble line of Lorelais, of which she was the fourth. Lorelai Eisweirth IV, to be precise. She dreamed of her mother's and to her dreamscape changed. It took her to a time in which she left her home to forge her own path in a far, far off land. The destination was here. She remembered that time well, if not always so dear. Her mistakes were vast and many. One was even seriously dire, but the world didn't end, so that was tidy. Slightly wiser and slightly older, Lorelai moved to a town, coincidentally named Town. There, she made homes and offices for the families and workers. There, she fell in deep love with a man from the woods. In the end though, that man would make mistakes so costly and dour that he would be forced to leave. Lorelai had a decision to make. The town bore no ill will towards her and wanted her to stay. But without a second thought, she chose to leave with that man, forever banished with the one she loved. Lorelai dreamed of time past, and eventually of time present. Her daughter and husband and house atop a hill. Though her dreams never imagined the future, of which was uncertain, they did however rewind and repeat. For you see, unable to move, not even a wiggle, all she could do was dream in the ever-increasing hominess of the void of her mind. Part 8. A task that would be done. Bailey returned home and Kit rushed to his side, but embraced the two could not stay for long. Poor Lorelai, to say had worsened, would do no justice, for you see, root-like appendages had sprouted from her flesh. Bailey's face, a rarity, now showed worry. This symptom was new. There was work to be done, and haste was her only virtue. They set the book of words on the table and began the first part of their weighty task. Within its many pages were the secrets to the world ethereal and temporal. They both knew that this task would not be easy, yet they also knew It was a task that would be done. Part 9. The Cure. The days were long, and the nights even longer. The two, duo of daughter and father, worked in shifts. One would take care of the mother, while the other scoured the book for anything of use. This went on for days, but pay dirt did come, as on one of the book's innumerable pages was an illustration that must resemble the mother's state. It listed ingredients 5 that could be mixed at the sacred forest's altar to form a salve to alleviate the afflicted. A swirling ball of frozen sun, grounded bark from a talking tree, spring water blessed by fairies of the forest, the fine white hairs of a stallion of the wind, and finally, blood bonded of both love and of the body. Obtaining blood bonded by love and body would be simple. For love, Bailey pricked his finger and drained some of his blood into a bowl, and for body, he would do the same with his wife. However, getting the rest of the items would prove more difficult. He would have to venture into the sacred forest, a place proven cursed by young Bailey Woods. So, he grabbed his satchel, putting book and blood inside, kissed his wife, and vowed to cure her. He picked up his little girl and held her close to his beating heart. The rhythm rhyme it made always calmed her mind. In his loving arms, Bailey told his daughter to take care of her mother and that she need not worry. He will return with cure in hand, but, he warned, should anything happen, should something occur, she must not enter the forest, for the forest was cursed. And with that, he left, on steed to the forest. Part 10. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐞 Decision 1. Kit again waited with her mother for her father to return. She waited for what may have been days, watching as her mother became less and less human. She waited for what must have been weeks, watching as the sun and moon endlessly denoted times a day, almost mockingly so. She waited for a long time, with no word or answer, until one day, a knock-knock came from the front door. This directed emotions in her so strong that tears ran down her face like beautiful twin waterfalls. She raced to the door, bursting it open with such vigor you could tell she was Bailey's little girl. But outside was not her father, only his horse, Rory. Kit looked round, but only the steed was to be found. She fell to her knees, hitting a small rock, which caused her to whimper, though only a little. Rory neighed and lovingly pushed his muzzle against her cheek. The girl said no words, just hugged the horse and sobbed. That is until she spied the book of words in Rory's saddle side. The girl stood up and looked back into her home, back at her almost lifeless mother. She knew she was at a crossroads. A decision would have to be made. Part 11. 𝐒𝐤𝐤𝐞 Decision 2. Kit sat by her ill mother's side and asked for help on what to do, but her mother's body lay still, and her mouth stayed silent, and her ears probably couldn't hear. Poor Lorelai was confined in a body that did not work, and stuck with a mind that was lost in a void. Kit looked out the open door, into the beyond, hoping to hear her father's voice, but nothing came. Whatever decision this unfortunate little girl would come to would be her own. She stretched out on the floor and closed her eyes, and after a moment, got up, tended to her mother by cutting the roots that had grown from her body, walked outside and closed the door, jumped on Rory, who was a horse, and asked him to take her to the forest. Scared beyond belief, her decision was made. She would save them both. Part 12. Another World 1. Upon reaching the forest, the horse named Rory stopped and laid down. He would go no further. The girl, who we know is named Kit, did not mind this. She patted him on the head and told him to wait for her return. As she entered the forest, it felt to her as if she was entering another world. The colors of the forest seemed different, not brighter nor darker. It was hard to put into words. It was just otherworldly. And everything was so big, doubly for a girl as small as Kit. The word magical came to her mind, though had Kit been a few years older, maybe the word terrifying would have arrived first. This forest, magical or terrifying, was strangely inviting. Its lure, curious. The little Kit let herself be compelled further into its timbered retreat. Kit in the Mystic Forest was written by T.O. Coleman, performed by ''H, with original music remix by Adachi. And as always, we give a very special thanks to our audience for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Next time, Act 2A, The Forest and the Cure.